had like been writing for like 2 months before I was like, okay, I think I have enough to like, I have something to say now. And it went relatively well. And I was like, well, crap, now I got to do this forever. Like, I was like, okay, it went well. Now I have to keep doing this.
Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. I am Jackson Huff. This is Not in a Huff. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, really appreciate it. This week, speaking with another comedian. It's kind of been the theme of 2026, if you will. Already spoke to several, got several lined up, so hopefully you're enjoying them. This time I'm speaking with Sagan Butler, really awesome comedian out of Texas. I first saw her on Kill Tony, which if you don't know what that is, it's a podcast where you can see it on YouTube as well, but kind of lesser known comedians are given 1 minute to do a stand-up set, and there's a lot of people that's really made it big out of Kill Tony. So I like to watch that on occasion. I think when I spoke with Sagan, I'd only watched a few episodes, but I've watched quite a bit now. Really enjoy it for sure, learning about new comedians and following along, and I'm having several on, so really happy about that. So we're going to talk to Sagan about what made her decide to get into comedy. We're going to talk about all the other amazing things she's done. She's been a doula. She's done all kinds of other stuff. I think she's still kind of juggling a lot, being a comedian, other work. I think she's also a parent. So a lot of stuff going on with Sagan. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation about how she started, where she's at now, what she'd love to eventually be able to do in her comedy career. But really awesome conversation. If this is your first time listening or you haven't already, go follow along on Instagram, on TikTok, now on YouTube as well. That's a new thing. Obviously, Apple and Spotify. Follow along there. Leave a 5-star rating and a written review. That helps a ton. But here's Sagan Butler. Miss Butler, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Hardest question of the day. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Sagan Butler. I live in Dallas, Texas. I do stand-up comedy.
So
Yeah.
Good enough. Yeah. I'm going to start with a really just profound, interesting question. Not really. And that is, I'm always interested. I've interviewed like, I don't know, 400 people at this point. So I'm always a sucker for a good name. Believe it or not, I've never interviewed a Sagan before. Where did that come from? I've never heard that name in my life.
Well, my parents picked it. No,
All
no,
right.
I'm named after, my mom got the name from Carl Sagan, who is an
Okay.
astrophysicist.
Uh-huh.
It's a weird name. And Butler is actually my first husband's last name. So Butler is not even my maiden name, but I just kept it after we got divorced many years ago. And so I liked it better than my maiden name. So I just kept that. But Sagan is astrophysicist, scientist
Well,
guy,
I have.
wrote the Cosmos.
Yeah, I have heard of Carl Sagan. So, as a fellow person with the first name, last name with Jackson, I guess, I like it. I like that a lot. Um, let's get right into kind of comedy. You are a stand-up comic. This is a question I'm sure you've answered before, but when did you first, I guess, realize that you were funny? Because I've talked to a lot of stand-up comedians in the past, and there's a difference between somebody who is funny and being able to, make their friends laugh and actually be able to get on stage and do that. So before we kind of parse that out, just when did you figure out you were funny to begin with?
Oh, I think I'm still trying to convince myself of that, honestly. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb really quick. Okay, cool. I don't want to be interrupted again, sending me crazy stuff. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
When did I first realize I was funny? I've always been silly. So I can remember like, as a kid just being really silly and goofy and making up stuff. And I grew up in a really funny family. So I mean it was very dysfunctional, but it was very funny. And so I was just comedy has just always been a part of what I do. And then in school, whenever I did theater in school and stuff, I always liked doing the funnier plays, or we would do like improv games or things like that. So I've always funny and comedy have always been like a central part of my life. So I don't know if there was any kind of like one definitive moment where I was like, oh, okay. Um, there was a moment where I realized that I could do stand up, if that makes sense, like make that transition. And that was, I got really into the podcast Being Ian with Jordan, the Ian Fidance and Jordan Fidance, or Eden Fidance and Jordan Jensen, excuse me, I can't talk. And I binge watched that, and I had a realization that they have a lot of the same mental illness as me. And I was like, oh, they're the same kind of crazy as me. I could do this because I always wanted to do stand up. Like my whole like that was like my childhood dream was to do stand up. I just never thought I could make the, be funny on purpose kind of thing. But then I just really saw how they did it and how they coped with it and what they turned it into. And I was like, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna see if I can do that.
And how
So,
long now have you been trying?
I just hit the 2 year mark this month on January 5th was my 2 year anniversary of first time I did stand up. So
Which
I'm
is
still very
which
new.
is Yeah, which is pretty new. I've talked to people that's been doing it for like 40 years, and they said they didn't really feel comfortable till year 10. So I think
Yeah.
you're kind of in your infancy. So let's talk about kind of that beginning, that deciding to do get up there and do it. I don't know. Normally that means you went to open mics or something like that. What was that first experience like? Did you get up there and feel like a natural? Was it really scary? What did that look like?
Um, it went oddly well. So my first open mic experience, I did at Sharks Comedy Club, and of course I was nervous. I still that's the thing. I still get nervous. I still have stage fright terribly to this day, but I had survived a lot. Like I had gotten out of an abusive relationship and just like went through the worst of the worst and had really bad PTSD. And I came out on the other side of it. And so I was just like, you know what? It is scary, but I've already survived so much. If I do this and I suck at it, relatively speaking, it's not that big of a deal. So I got up there and I made people laugh. I was received really well. I had actual jokes. I feel like a lot of people, when they go to their first open mic, they don't really know what they're going to say. But I had like been writing for like 2 months before I was like, okay, I think I have enough to like, I have something to say now. Um, but I went and it went relatively well. And I was like, well, crap, now I got to do this forever. Like, I was like, okay, it went well. Now I have to keep doing this. So
Yeah.
it was
You
cool.
got you got that initial high off of it, and you just continue to chase that. I get that for sure. And
Mhm.
you said something that I've heard a lot, and that is that a lot of people go up the first time, and they've been funny around their friends for years, and they think they can just kind of make it work, and that's when they fail miserably. So you had those jokes lined up, but you hadn't done it before, so
Mhm.
you weren't you couldn't rely on I know what topics make people laugh the way that I say them. I know kind of how to structure this in a way that people are going to laugh, because that's the hardest thing. I think people that have done it for years and years and years, they still think, oh, this joke's going to be amazing, and then it bombs, and ones that they thought was going to be just a small little thing people love. So how in that writing that you'd been doing, how did you do that? How were you able to kind of figure out what was going to work before you even truly had tested it out at all?
Well, when it comes to stand up, I always say I'm a writer first.
Hmm.
Like I think that actually the being on stage to me is like my least favorite part. I call it necessary evil. Like I don't like attention, I don't like spotlight, but I do like creative writing. Um, and so I've just been like a lifelong consumer of comedy. And the only thing I did before I actually got on stage is I went to a writers group um, a few weeks before the first time I ever got on stage. I saw because I started researching the local comedy scene and following local comedians and yada yada yada. And somebody had posted, "Oh, we're having a writers group," and I was like, "Well." I messaged him. I was like, I've never been on stage, but I've been writing and I haven't taken the step to go on stage yet. So I would like to just go and see if I have anything of substance. And I did. And I told them what I had, and they were like, no, this is really good. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things. It's like it's a natural thing. Like obviously it's like a really unrefined kind of funny, but I feel like this sounds so egotistical, but I do think I just have like a natural funny and a natural timing. And then just learning how to refine that. So uh I just uh just thought a lot. I just kind of like hyper fixated on it, and it was the only thing that pulled me out of like my PTSD, because had really bad PTSD at the time. And so I used to just like ruminate on like all the abuse and stuff, and I would get lost and not know where I was. And so I was just like, okay, I got a notebook and a pen, and I did like a it wasn't even funny, it was like just a brain dump, just like of all my emotional crap, everything, just got it out of the way. And it was like got this block out of my headspace. And then after that, it was just like jokes just kept flooding in. And so I spend a lot of time driving. So like I would just be driving and just constantly thinking of just jokes and things like that. And just going on being myself, but also having like so many like influences, and just being an observer and just kind of like, okay. Because to me, it's like for very basic joke writing, it's just formulaic. Like you just like I tell people like oh, I have this funny story and I don't know how to like say it on stage. I'm like, just start with like a formula and then build from there to make it like less robotic and more you. So really just starting at the basics of just like basic joke structure, starting there and plugging in my thoughts to like a basic setup, and then giving it more life, more color, more my voice with time. So
I like that a lot. I ask a lot of musicians about, do they prefer the songwriting more or the performing more? Because there is definitely that difference there. And I get 50-50 kind of split there, but I've never asked a comedian what they prefer more. And you said that you really like the writing. Is that common that a lot of, I mean, what's that look like? That's never a question I've ever asked. It, in my head, as somebody who's not a comedian and knows nothing, I would think people want to do comedy because they want to get those laughs and they want to be up there. They kind of want to be the center of attention. But I also know a lot of comedians that are completely different off stage than they are on stage. So is that pretty
mhm.
common that people are kind of, some people just like to write the jokes and they have to tell them eventually?
I don't see that as often. There's a lot of the like they just didn't get enough attention as a child type thing. And so they want the attention and stuff. I do like the instant feedback aspect of it. That part's nice with the performing and getting like real time reactions. But I do find it's less common for people like me that are just more focused on the writing aspect. I mean, I think I would be happy in a writer's room. You know what I mean? Like when I did theater, I switched from actually being one of the performers to doing the tech stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff. And that was just as fulfilling for me to like be a part of a team and be a part of like a creative project where I'm not necessarily like the face of it, but like I contribute to it. But yeah, I don't notice that as much. There's a lot of like wanting to be, which is fine. Like I'm not criticizing them. It's just everybody's motivations are different. But yeah, I don't think that's as common. But I think that also helps me because I'm very um, focused on like my material, and like I view it as like a, for me with stand up is like I've broken it down into like a series of like events or skill sets. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm guessing my way through this whole thing, but it's like, I spent the first part of doing stand up just focused on my material and making sure I had something to say. And I did that. I'm still kind of doing that. I'm just now starting to branch out into other things, like other skill sets, like, being more like crowd work. I don't really do crowd work, which I think is a really important skill, but it's like I wanted to focus on that first and then kind of branch out like, okay, well, now I'm going to learn how to do this. And now I'm going to learn how to do that. I'm going to be, less of a monologue and more of a conversation, like that kind of thing that like I'm still in the process of doing. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question.
No, it certainly does for sure. And this is where I want to take a little bit of a break. We've learned a little bit about you. We've already kind of dug pretty deep into your world of comedy, but let's learn a little bit more about Sagan in a game that I call rapid fire, generally no follow up. I'm going to ask you a series of 9 questions that are pretty dumb. We'll learn a little bit about you, but nothing that really matters. So I try to, and I try to say nothing afterwards. That's why it's rapid fire, generally no follow up. But the things that I have pretty strong opinions about myself. So are you ready?
Okay.
All right. You're in a hurry. What is your go-to fast food order?
I'm in a hurry. What is my go-to fast food order? I go to Whataburger a lot. I gotta get a junior Whataburger junior, extra mustard, fries, Coke Zero.
All right. You have $3. You have $3. What are you spending it on?
$3. What am I gonna spend it on? Probably a Coke Zero.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Socks with sandals, acceptable or not?
If they're slides.
All right.
Not the ones that go in your toes.
All right. What's one place that you've never been that you've always wanted to visit?
Spain.
What's the most used app on your phone?
Probably Instagram.
All right, we're going to talk music now. What's one song that you hear and it just automatically gets you pumped and ready to go?
Shake a Tail Feather by Murphy Lee and Nelly.
All right. Flip side, what's one song that you hear that just makes you scoff and want to turn it off?
Scoff and turn it off. I don't know if I have one for that. I'm pretty flexible. Oh no, I don't know. I don't know. Scoff and turn it off. Who do I not like? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty adaptable. I can make anything fun.
That works. That works. Last question. What's one thing that you have that you really should throw away?
One thing that I have that I really should throw away.
Or donate. Doesn't necessarily have to be thrown away. You don't need it anymore.
Oh, all of the clothes that my kids have outgrown.
All right, that works. I like it. You didn't answer one question. I'll let you get away with that. You answered some of the questions in ways that I don't like, but I'm going to have no follow-up. That's where we are. But the one thing I'll say is I have been to Spain. I do recommend it. So hopefully you get there eventually.
That's my dream destination.
All right. So now we'll get back to the regular questions. Later on, we'll play another game. There'll be 2 different games you actually get to pick. I won't pick for you. So
Cool.
let's kind of go back into the world of comedy, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about your inspirations. But before we get into huge comic inspirations, I know that you had a friend in comedy, Henry Cruz. I assume he may have inspired you a bit, and think you said that he's no longer with us, but that he meant a lot to you. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, Henry was he was inspiring. Now that I never thought of it in that way, but he definitely was. He went through some personal stuff. He had spent some time in jail and things like that, and he really was like turning his life around and was really pouring himself into comedy. And like even though we had different types of struggles, it was really cool to have like the camaraderie of like getting over whatever we had gone through in the past and like pouring ourselves into what we loved and working on it and getting better and getting to do that together. So yeah, like that work ethic and that like I'm not going to be a victim of my circumstance kind of mentality is something that we really bonded over, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I like that. Yeah. So, I mean, did you just meet him on the comedy circuit there in Dallas, or how did that all come about?
I actually met him my very first night doing comedy
Hmm.
at my very first open mic. And we just saw each other in passing for a little while. And then one of our there's a kid in our scene who started very young, like he graduated high school, and I planned it's like a surprise graduation party for him. His name's Nathan Beeman, and I had all of our friends like record little funny congratulation messages. And then after that, he and I got really, really close because he was like, "Oh, that was really nice. Like, I didn't realize like how nice of a person you were." And then we just after that, we were like glued at the hip, just like inseparable, just together. That's the thing is like with doing comedy, especially like somewhere like Dallas, you just see the same people 4 or 5 nights a week, constantly, just out and about, and you get really close to them just accidentally. And then like when you start hanging out away from there, it's just you get really close. So
Yeah, and we're going to talk here in a minute about kind of the roast that I watched that you take part in, but I think that you did a roast with that Nathan Beeman, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of my closest friends.
yeah, he I don't even know whether I that when I was watching, I'm not sure whether I even always liked his jokes, but I just liked his energy. He's a very happy fella in those roasts. He seemed like he was loving being roasted, which just makes it all better. I thought I liked him
Yeah.
a lot.
He's great. He's a great kid. He's got a bright future ahead of him. So,
Yeah, for sure. And
mhm.
I want to, I kind of frame that in a way of inspiration. I don't really know how else to drop in, tell me about your dead friend. So hopefully he inspired you a little bit. But
Yeah.
let's talk about those who in the comedy world have inspired you. You already talked about how you listened to that comedy podcast and that helped make you want to do stand up, but talk about
Mhm.
some of the other inspirations you have as comics, whether they're little known people that, mean a lot to you or whether they're, household names.
I think growing up, my biggest comedy influence was actually Conan O'Brien, probably. I loved Conan, and Stephen Wright was another big one. I was just like a little girl, just like enamored with the both of them. Like I remember I had my first iPod. I had like Stephen Wright. I forget the name of his one of his albums on there. I would listen to it all the time. But Conan, it was just so big. I love silly. I really love silly, and I really got to see when late night Conan O'Brien there was a lot of silly. So that was really good. And then of course like I said, I love Jordan Jensen and Ian Fidance, but people like Casey Rocket are a huge inspiration to me because he reminds me of so much of my like childlike sense of humor, like the nonsensical stuff. And it's funny because I don't necessarily write like that, but I'm so inspired to just like it's okay to be just goofy or silly or make no sense as long as like it's funny. And I just it's so wholesome to me, and I really like that. I love Dan Soder is another big one, which Dan Soder is like popular, but I still don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. And then I really liked Maria Bamford growing up. That was another big one because she also has that like kind of like silly, more like surreal kind of thing to her. Or like Pablo Francisco is a big one. The list goes on and on. It's just I think I'm kind of inspired just by like everybody that's doing it because they're doing it. And then like I mean, there's even people, that I do open mics with that I inspire me, like whether it be for their work ethic or their style or their resilience or whatever. I really like DIY people that just like they make their own path kind of thing, and that's why I mentioned Sharks Comedy Club earlier, but Noah Robertson, he's the proprietor of Sharks Comedy Club, and it's him. He built that from the ground up, and he is very consistent and works really hard for the betterment of the community. And I find that like that's really something that I saw was like I want to be a part of that. Like that's where I belong. This is what I'm about. It's very punk rock. You know what I mean? Like the I know like it like underground punk scenes used to be very DIY. They'd make their own like magazines and everything. And I just really like that like grassroots effort to be like, we'll make our own space. And I think that's really cool. I mean, it's cliche, but being a woman, you kind of have to like do that. You have to like make a space for yourself, and like nobody's really gonna like give it to you necessarily, at least in the, when nobody knows who the hell you are. So I like people like that for sure. So
Yeah. I didn't write that question. I don't know how many podcast interviews you've done, but if you do five more, I guarantee at least two people are going to ask you, so what's it like being a woman in comedy? So I don't ask that question because everyone asks that one. But yeah,
mhm,
I certainly understand that for sure. And you're kind of showing your colors when it comes to being a comedy writer first, because when I do talk to people that are, in the writing and directing and in comedy space on that world, almost everyone in inspirations mentions Stephen Wright just because he's a totally different kind of comic to be able to write those one liners, and that takes a
mhm.
different skill. That's not, I don't know that it's necessarily a stand-up skill. It is more of a writing skill. So you're showing, I think you're showing that writing thing for sure by mentioning that. And not only mentioning that, mentioning it you listened to as a kid. That's kind of weird that you listened to him as a child, but I
I
guess
was a
that's
weird
who
kid.
Sagan is.
Yeah, I was a weird kid for sure.
I didn't say
Yeah.
that. I said it's weird that you listened to him. I'm not going to call you a weird kid. That's not
Oh, no,
nice.
I got you. I got you. I'll say it for you.
There you go. Yeah. So we mentioned you're relatively new in the scene, but you've done a lot, and you've been able to obviously get quite a few things on YouTube where people can check you out, which is awesome. But I want to ask you, given that you still are new enough to kind of remember that first time pretty well, and kind of where you're at now, what's been the hardest part of the journey thus far? I mean, you already kind of mentioned the whole woman in comedy. If you want to take it that route, you can. But outside of that, maybe what's the hardest part?
Um, the hardest part of doing it so far, it's very time consuming. I think the hardest part for me is probably the fact that I'm a single mom, and trying to balance like you being there for my kids and everything, and also just like because I'm a single mom and I don't have family that lives in town, so it's pretty much just me. And then getting good opportunities, good shows or stage time, and then scrambling to try to find safe, reliable childcare. Because there's been times where I've had to just take the kids with me. I've gone on stage with a baby on my hip and a microphone in the other because they got to get it done. Like I said, I'm not going to be a victim of my circumstances, and so it's sometimes I'm on stage and I have four kids with me, and they steal the show, but whatever. I have funny kids, but I think that's probably the hardest for me is just like keeping my head above water financially, finding childcare, and because it's like most of these people I do with are single guys with no kids, and it's like this whole other like I have a real life and real responsibilities, and um, I just have to you know I say I Tim Gun it, I make it work, or I adapt, improvise, overcome. I have a lot of catchphrases that keep me going. But that's probably been the hardest thing because I've been very blessed as the opportunities come. Um, but the hardest part is just being able to be like to just say yes and show up and do the show because it's like, well, it's a Wednesday night and I have four kids and it's a school night and I'm on my own and what am I gonna do? So it's that's hard. And then how much you have to get on stage and just hit open mics and the grind of it. Um, that's probably the hardest for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about inspiration. Let's hope your trajectory happens a lot quicker, but hopefully you've got a little bit of inspiration from, the person who's everywhere now, which is Leanne Morgan. She had to stay pretty close to where she was because of kids, and then when they grew up, she's went crazy. But that's exactly what she said. Hey, I have children. It was a little bit harder to tour nationally at the time. So like I said,
Mhm.
let's hope it doesn't take till you're 55, but that's still inspiration. That's never ever too late.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like sometimes like, oh, I started comedy late because I was like 32 when I started, and I'm like, oh, I'm late to the game, but at the same time I always have to remind myself, no, I started when I was supposed to because I wouldn't have the experiences and the point of view that I had, and I wouldn't have something to say, or the resiliency that I needed, or the maturity that I needed. So I started, even though it feels like I started when I was supposed to. So
No, absolutely. I think that's a powerful thing for sure. And again, given that you're getting your start, that means taking the mic wherever you can. And I always like to ask newer comics the craziest place they've had to perform. I've talked to people who's had to perform for one person, and not that no one else showed up. He literally booked the comedy show just for himself. I've had people that's had to perform in churches when they're a vulgar comedian and had to on the fly figure out how to make it not so vulgar. What's some of the craziest places you performed?
craziest places I've performed, just places where I feel like if I'm not careful, I'm gonna leave with tetanus, Like there's a lot of rusty edges in here. Um, let's see. I do a lot of like smaller towns. I did one show in a movie theater, like just a movie theater, which was really awkwardly set up. I had fun, but it was just like they had those seats where everybody could lay their seat back, and I was like, y'all are the most comfortable looking people I've ever performed for. And of course, like they had no, like the lights were just on, like they had no, like it was either just, we could either have lights on or off, and if they have them off, we can't see you. So I'm just looking at all these people just lounged up. I was like, y'all gotta, you're too relaxed, okay? That was weird. Where else have I gone that's a little kooky? I don't, just small towns where I'm just like I did a show in Atoka, Oklahoma, and it was my first time ever being in Oklahoma. I've lived in Texas my entire life. It's my first time I'd ever been to Oklahoma, and everybody was really nice, but it's just like I didn't. They were just so stereotypically from Atoka, Oklahoma, and that was really surprising. I was like, y'all, this is real. Like y'all really live like this. But nothing like too crazy. I haven't done like any like strip clubs or anything. I've thought about doing something like that, but um, pretty, just places where I feel like I'm gonna get stabbed, stuff like that.
Well, I'm glad that you don't have that story to tell, at least yet. So knock on wood.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those specials that I have seen you on. I want to start with I guess kind of the biggest YouTube show that you can be on in comedy, and that's Kill Tony. And I guess I want to ask. I had trouble finding you because why is it labeled Sagan Buckler instead of Butler? What's up
Yeah,
with
I
that?
noticed that. I don't know who put that video up. I have no idea who, but I know exactly what you're talking about because it does say that. But yeah, I don't know who posted that, but that's not my name.
Maybe you went through a change that you decided to go. You used to be a buckler, but now you're a butler. Not a big change, but just a slight change you made.
Yeah, I have no idea, but it's episode 664, Last Bucket Full, if anybody wants to find it more
Yeah,
easily.
yeah. So what was that experience like? Because that show 100% can make or break a comedian for sure.
I mean, it was a whirlwind kind of experience. I think I was only like 3 or 4 months into comedy when I got on Kill Tony.
Mhm.
So I was brand new, um, and I figured out what was going on pretty because the guy I was seeing at the time got on, and I was just focused like, oh, I hope he has a good set. And then I was there, and one of my friends from who was obviously we were in Austin, but one of my friends from Dallas was there, and he was like, hey, if he mentions you, they're gonna come get you. And I went, oh. I was like, I forgot that they do that. And so I was just like, go ahead and like lock in, get in game mode or whatever. And then Colt came out and called my name. And I was like already standing on the corner, like just in case he came and got me. And then, I mean, it happened so fast. We were waiting we were at Four Choices at the time, which is like catty corner from the mothership on 6th Street. And you have to cross like two streets to get there. And so you go back there, you go to the back door, they take your stuff, they scan you with the wand or whatever, and then you wait backstage. And I was back there. They were doing kind of like a rapid fire night. So there was like 2 or 3 comedians backstage with me, and we're all like waiting in this line. And I'm like trembling like I'm so scared, just terrified. And but it was one of those things I was like, well, I was like, you got to get it together. You can't go out there and be scared. So as soon as I walked on stage, I was fine. I'm always nervous right before I get on stage. Once I'm on stage, I'm usually okay. But I was just like, I just had to pretend like it was a normal open mic. Like when I walked out, I did not look to my left, like where Tony and the panel are. I was just like, I'm just gonna pretend like they're not here. I'm just gonna ignore them. I'm gonna do my minute and then see how mean he is to me afterwards. Like I'm not gonna worry about that. But it just happened. So it's so crazy how quickly it all goes. Because it feels like forever, but it's over in just like a minute. You know what I mean? Literally.
Yeah.
um, but it was really cool. It was a very cool experience. Casey Rocket was on the panel that night, and I'd ran into him like two times that week before. I'd seen him on Sixth Street like maybe a week or something before, and then literally the night before that episode of Kill Tony, he had performed in Dallas at Hyenas, and I like talked to him or whatever. And so it was just like I was just seeing Casey Rocket everywhere for like 2 weeks, and I've run into him since in Austin, and it's always like hi, and it's like I never expect him to know who I am, but he's like, oh, I remember you. I'm like, okay, cool. But it was wild. It went a lot better than I expected. Tony was a lot nicer to me than I expected. If you go back and watch my interview, he asked the question like, "What's something crazy about your life or whatever?" And I go, because I'm like, I'm gonna tell him, but I'm gonna get crucified. And I told him that I was a single mom of four, and he was actually really like, you know, took it easy on me. He was very chill about it. I thought, oh God, here we go. He was just gonna make me cry, but no, he didn't. He was really funny, really cool. So.
Good. Yeah. I like that. And I want to go on to other things that I see you on with YouTube, things that would make me cry if I was on, and those are the roast. What are those like? People I mean, you both sides are cutting each other down, but obviously you can also tell. At least I think it's mostly kind of out of love. But I don't know if I could handle that. So how do you first? How do you write for it? I assume you know who you're going up against because it's such pointed jokes. So how do you write for it?
Hmm.
And second, how do you take it with such grace?
Yeah, roast battle is probably the thing that makes me the most nervous because you don't really get to practice it. You just have to like write your jokes and hope that they land. Um, so usually what you get assigned your opponent usually you have some time, maybe a week, sometimes less if there's like, a quick replacement or whatever. I think the fastest I've ever had to write was in like 48 hours or something because I got reassigned because somebody dropped, so I had to write new jokes. But usually you have at least a few days. So I like to do like an information swap. So I'll get with my opponent and just be like, here's my background, here's, things that you can. I want to make it easy for them to write jokes because it's really not about who wins or loses. It's about putting on a good show. And so I'm very transparent with all of my like things that I think that they could work with. I've very colorful life, so I give all of that very freely, and ask them questions, get to know them, kind of conduct an interview, and then I sit down and I'll make a list, and sometimes the jokes, you'll be lucky, and sometimes you just are hit with inspiration and you'll come up with a banger. Sometimes it's a little drier and you have to sit down and like I have different like tricks that I've learned to try to like get the juices flowing and like uh whatever. But the thing is with this discussing stuff with your opponent beforehand, you also get to discuss like what your boundaries are.
Mhm.
So there's a rule that like anything that's like visibly obvious or obvious to the audience is you can't say, like you can't do it, like you can't take that off the table. But like if you have like um certain things that are just like, hey, stay away from XYZ topic, usually your partner, I haven't had an instance where a partner wasn't respectful of that because I also give them the same kind of respect. So anything that they say is like you also have to understand that, like, we don't mean anything that we're saying. And that's why like that's also like why it's so funny. Like with the roast battle with me and Nathan Beeman. Nathan Beeman is one of my best friends in the world. And we were so nervous at first, like he has a thing. He's like, we gave ourselves ulcers like getting ready for the battle because we love each other so much and we don't want to be mean to each other. But once you just lean into it and realize like this is all in good fun, it's like, and like I said, like I've been through so much in my life, I've taken so much crap over the years that like I'm pretty immune. I can it's like I've heard worse from people who meant it. I can take a joke from my friend, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it's fun. It's all in good. It's all in good fun. It's about being creative and being quick, and it's I do it because it's a challenging writing experience, and to me, it all goes back to being a good writer. And because when I started doing stand up, I was like, I'm never doing roast battles. I'm never doing roast battles, and then I got an opportunity to do one. I was like, I guess I'm gonna do it,
Mm.
and because it was just something I was uncomfortable with, and I was like, well, if it makes me uncomfortable, that probably means I should do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, they're fun to watch for sure. So I like that. Um, I mean, we've talked so much about you being a comedian, but not really kind of your style, so to speak. So if somebody sees that you're coming to a town near them, they're in a small town in Oklahoma, and you're about to head over there, what's your brand? What should they expect?
um, a lot of trauma. No, I mean, I write primarily about my life, and like I don't mean to be a dirty comic. I don't mean to be a dark comic. I try to write just about me and my lived experiences, and it just so happens that those tend to be on the dirtier or the darker side. Um, but I think that there's a lot in there that is relatable, and even if it's not, an exact translation, I feel like everybody has their own version of, things I've been through. And if they haven't, well, at least it's like they have a better understanding of people like me. I like to be silly as much as possible. But yeah, I write about real shit that I've gone through. And sometimes it's pretty, I don't know. I'm not super graphic, if that makes sense, but I'm definitely not a clean comic for sure. Um, but yeah, I just talk about what it's like to be a domestic violence survivor. I talk about what it's like to be a single mom. I talk about, my struggle with mental illness and all of those kinds of things. And um, it's just it's just raw, and I'm very transparent about, you know, my life and who I am. And I think that it's a very I guess vulnerable, and I think that works for people. I don't know, I hope.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it seems to be working. Let's kind of transition to outside of comedy. Before we're gonna ask you the question, we're gonna play the game, and then we'll wrap things up. So outside of comedy, I know when I was researching you, you at least at one point you were doing you were a doula as well. So talk about
Mhm.
what that is, how you got into that, and I don't know whether that's something you're still doing or uh, lay it on me about the doula.
So, yes, so I was a doula. I still technically am. I just haven't had any clients in a while because I've been focusing on comedy. But so it started with my first son was my only kid born in the hospital. I had a terrible experience. I've never had an epidural, and then I had a birth center birth, and then two of my kids were born at home. So when I had him, obviously I did the whole like researching childbirth, whatever. I had a terrible experience with the hospital and found out like I couldn't have epidurals. And so I went on like this crazy deep dive, learning everything about unmedicated birth and lactation and whatever. And then I just got really passionate about that. And then um, the thing about being a birth doula is you have to be on call. And at the time, I had, my two young boys at the time, and I couldn't do that. And so I shifted my practice to postpartum, which is a very overlooked area of birth. Anyway, I always say like focusing on the birth and not postpartum is like worrying about the wedding and not the marriage. So I was a doula for over a decade. And so, yeah, I would, as a postpartum doula, I'd support families after the arrival of an infant. I would focus on the care of the parents, making sure that they're nurtured, taken care of, they're eating, they're sleeping, their emotional well-being is taken care of. I'm keeping up with their house so that they can just focus on rest and relaxation. I'm also a lactation educator. I'm also a placenta encapsulator. I ate my own placenta twice. It was awesome. I'm one of
All
those.
right. All
Um,
right.
Never felt better. But yeah, it's something I'm very, very passionate about, and something that uh it just gets overlooked a lot. And I'm a big advocate for, like, educating people, because people don't know, like, in our like birth system, you have a baby, they hand the baby to you, and they're just like, all right, good luck, and they don't tell you anything about your self-care, what's happening to your body now, how do you take care of this infant. They're like, here's a person, keep it alive. Or and it's just bridging that gap, because I used to say that my job as a postpartum doula technically shouldn't exist, because historically speaking, villages would come together and like take care of the newborn family, or relatives or elders would come in and teach you all of those things and take care of you. We don't do that anymore, so now you have to outsource it. So that's where I would come in. But it's I helped a personal friend of mine had an infant recently, and I got to knock some of the dust off of those skills, and help her with some lactation stuff, and just fix a few problems so that they could continue having a successful breastfeeding journey. And that felt really good, knowing that just small suggestions or little help can really impact like the whole trajectory of like a person's life is really powerful and very cool. So
Yeah, no, it certainly is. It sounds like really, really important work, and overlooked work too, with what you were doing postpartum. So I mean, that's amazing. The only thing I fear at this point now is my editor. They're always trying to find a snappy clip for the reels. I'm really afraid that they're going to clip, I ate my placenta twice and it was awesome, but let's not do that just for post editing you. So yeah, let's move on from that, and we're going to go into one of the next games. So you got a choice between two. This is the only time that it would have helped you to have ever listened to another episode, because I'm going to tell you the name of the two games. Not going to tell you how to play them, just by name. Do you prefer to play Podcast Realities or Bravo, Your Picture's Being Framed?
Podcast Reality, Bravo,
Well, hold on a second. I think you shifted and wherever you were, and now I can't hear you.
Hello.
I think I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know what I did wrong. My earbud is falling out.
I'm going to ask the question again just in case, okay? So this is the only time that it would have helped you to have ever listened to another episode, because I'm just going to tell you the two names, and between those names, you're going to have to decide which one you want to play. So the first one is Podcast Realities. Second one is Bravo, Your Picture's Being Framed. Just by the name alone, which one do you want to play?
Podcast Reality.
Podcast Realities. This may be an interesting one, given that I can see you kind of maybe potentially holding your phone and trying to, I don't know where you're at. So the Podcast Reality says, hey, in the world of Zoom interviews with these podcasts, all I can see is your face, and I have no idea what's going on around you. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about the realities of your world. So it's 5 questions. They're progressively going to get a little bit more hard, maybe a little bit more invasive, but none of them are going to be too crazy. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm not even in my house. This is somebody else's house.
All right. So, first of all, easiest question, how are you joining us? Are we on your phone? Are you on a computer? What's going on?
I'm on my phone.
All right. Not to be outdone by all of our babbling, is there any animals present that did not get the 15 minutes of fame during this interview?
No live ones. I know that.
No live ones?
Yeah.
Do you have a couple dead ones around you?
I imagine where. Yeah. I see at least one right now.
All right. So I know that there was a little bit of a confusion about the time, and you were unsure whether you're going to be ready in time. So this is a good question for you. How much preparation did you have to do for the interview when it comes to being ready? Was it something that, hey, oh yeah, I've got to do this interview, and you came as you are? Did you have to get all spruced up? How much preparation came into How I Met You Today?
I woke up, I looked in the mirror, I said, good enough. And then I was taken to get a cup of coffee. And then I came back to where I am and I sat on this couch and I called you.
All right. And you know what? It's worked out just fine. So I like it. Again, they're more invasive. This one, I'm going to leave it to TMI whether you decided to wear pants to the interview, but I can only see you from the shoulders up. So I always like to ask, this is a professional interview. I always make sure that I put on shoes for the professional interview. So are you wearing shoes or at the very least a colorful fancy pair of socks?
I am wearing shoes. I'm wearing my Air Force Ones.
I like it.
So
I like it.
I need new ones, but I stop in them a lot. Yep, I am wearing shoes because I literally walked in and sat down. Normally, I don't wear shoes in the house. I will say that. Like, if I'm at my house, I wear shoes off house. But I literally just walked in and sat down, so the shoes stayed on.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of ribbing from the general no follow-up game, and that is maybe you'd be wearing your socks and slides, which is, to me, is completely unacceptable. So I'm glad that you're not doing that.
Hey, that is Texas winter footwear. I wear my slides. I'm like, oh, it's cold outside. I need new slides. That's why I'm not doing that right now. But slides with socks, that's a very Dallas winter thing. It's a very, very Dallas thing. Yeah,
we'll leave it at that. Last question, and I'm not going to ask you to do it, definitely in somebody else's house. But if you had to do a whole 360, are you at all embarrassed at the state of the room that you're in?
No, because it's not mine.
It makes it a little different.
Not my chair, not my problem.
Yeah, that's the end of the game. But I want to ask you a further question with that, just because what did that look like? You're in somebody else's house. You just is like, oh, by the way, I need to jump on and do this interview while you're just at some other, I was about to say random person's house. I assume it's not a random person to you, but what did that look like?
Well, I'm here alone now. He's also a comedian. So I was like, I have to do a podcast. I said, okay, bet. But right now, I think he's out procuring us food.
Okay.
So he's like, I'll get out of here and go get us something to eat and provide you your space. I was like, thanks, big dog.
Well, hopefully it's warm. We've been here for an hour. If he's been getting the food for the whole hour, he's either going somewhere far or it's going to be cold.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. He might just be sitting down in his truck for all I know.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll let you get to your food. So last couple questions is the one you've already kind of answered in the very beginning when you were talking about writing, but the question that you got to ask everybody, just because, people listening to this, they're wanting to get out there and eventually do stand up or comedy or entertainment of any form. What advice do you have to the up and coming?
The biggest thing I always say, and I say this to myself, is who gives a shit? Just try. Like, if you go and you're bad, who cares? In the grand scheme of things, at least you did it.
I like that. I like that.
That's it.
So in wrapping things up, how can people follow along with you?
I'm on Instagram at Sagan Butler, SAGANBUTLER. I also have a TikTok with the same name that I need to post on more. So if you follow me, eventually, hopefully, we'll see more. But those are the two main things. I post all of my shows and what I'm up to on my Instagram primarily. So that'd be great.
Good. And all the links to that will be in the show note. I really appreciate you, Sagan. Thanks so much for taking time to talk to me.
Of course. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
And that was Sagan Butler. Really appreciate her coming on. Always love to speak with comedians, and Sagan Butler was certainly amazing to talk to. all the links to follow along with her so you can see her rise in fame. It will be in the show notes. I urge you to check out some of her comedy online. Go check out her time on these different roasts. Those are really cool and something I wouldn't be able to do like I told her. But check those out on YouTube. Check out all of her social media. I think you're really going to enjoy following along with her. If this is your first time listening, just like I said, go follow along with this podcast. Had a lot of comedians on in the past, but not just comedians, people from the true crime world, authors, famous actors, Olympic gold medalists, all kinds of people have joined me, and all of them have been really, really awesome. So check out past episodes, follow along on Apple and Spotify and Instagram and TikTok and all those places so you don't miss future episodes. Definitely more comedians coming and a lot of comedians in the past too, if that's your thing. But like I said, tons of other things too. So hope you'll check those out. But yeah, Sagan, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate you as a listener joining me as well. We'll see you next time. Take it away, Chris.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.